All right, let's take a look at the North American Computational Linguistics Olympiad. So one of the main feeder leagues, you could say, for the International Linguistics Olympiad. And we have a lot of good options for practice problems here. So let's take a look at the NACLO website. And there's a link here to practice problems page. And this is like a huge collection. So I encourage anyone who is interested in NACLO, or even if you're not in North America and you're interested in the International Linguistics Olympiad, there's still a wealth of practice here. There's a whole like system that they have, the sample problems which we'll look at, and this is an interesting little link here to the solve rates. And here we can see that there's a really like they're really open with their data, which is great, and you can see there is a huge range of solve rates. Now, the first thing to notice is that NACLO is divided into the open and invitational rounds. And so if those who do well enough in the open round will be invited to the invitational round. So these tend to have the harder challenges. If we just focus on the open, you can see, like here, D get 85% versus 11, right? 90% versus 11. So an enormous range. And this is going back into the past here. Okay. So on this page, you can see the problems and solutions for each of the years. And at this time, shortly after or within a few months after the end of each year's contest, they will be posted here. So here we see 2025, and you can go down through all of them. But what I want to look at today is what I recommend for the starting point. I think for these are like the actual problems you get when you actually take the exam. And roughly the first half is going to be the open, and the second half would be the invitational, what they're calling round 1, round 2. But these already assume that you have a certain degree of practice. Because really, if you're serious about taking these exams, you really should do just as many of these problems as you can. That's the main way to prepare, is just do a lot of them. But I want to start with these sample problems that haven't been used. And so you click here, or you can scroll way down to the bottom. And here we just have a list alphabetically of a bunch of good starting points. These, I would say, it's hard to judge difficulty purely, except by looking at the solve rates. But I would say these seem to be a bit of an easier place to start. And so I would say for those if you're just starting out with these Linguistics Olympiad type of puzzles, this is a good place to start. So why don't we go to the very first puzzle, and here it is. It is Agta. Okay. So first we learn here. I always like to get this little bit of geographical information. You kind of imagine you're traveling around the world and we're going to some place you've maybe never heard of, and this is a language we've almost certainly never heard of. Only 600 speakers in this central Cagayan area, the Agta language. And I'm tempted to just go to Wikipedia, look up the Agta language, read about it and see what it's all about. But you don't need to do that for any of these puzzles. They're designed to be solvable without any knowledge of the language at all. And really, in most cases, without any knowledge of linguistics. It's really about the patterns. Linguistics can just help you, but these are pure patterns, in that it's possible also to solve these from kind of a purely mathematical kind of pattern sort of angle as well. But let's now take a look here. What does this look like? We begin with a list of words, 11 words with English translations. And then all we have, the only thing being asked for, is to make these further translations. Translate these back. Okay, well, now usually that's going to be a little bit harder than going the other way. Like, it's easier to translate something into English than it is to translate something into an unknown language. But it looks like this is going to be possible based on the patterns we see here. So how can we figure it out? How do we know how to translate these words? So as usual with these kinds of puzzles, it's all about finding the patterns. And the first pattern that jumps out to me is you see this, this little, right? So we're seeing these pairs of words where we have one is a thing and then there's little thing. Okay. Now you can see the way they've scrambled it. See, maybe they're trying to make it look a little bit less easy by scrambling and mixing these words all together so they look like a random mix of words. That's another big part of this puzzle solving is you take chaos and you form it into order. You're really like, you take what looks like a random collection and you turn it into something patterned. So what I want to do here certainly is to put the thing and little thing combos together. So let's see, maybe do it like this, say Wallaware. Right, so you're kind of building your notes page is like a big part of these puzzles, like being able to rearrange the information. So we have where and Wallaware. Okay, so that means creek and little creek. And you could actually write that out as well, but basically the pattern is like, you could say like noun and little noun. You can put it that way if you want. Yeah. Okay, so we have where, Wallaware. Okay, so we can go through. Okay, now next I see little pig is number 2, so we go, okay, we have Bahui and Balabahui. And now I'm thinking, okay, I actually kind of want these to be lined up. Rather than the slash, let's get these nice and lined up. Okay. Okay. So next we have beetle is talobag. Ooh, okay. And then we have, this is the blank one. Okay, this is one of the mystery words. Okay, because we need, that's number 13, little beetle, right? So you have 3 and 13. Okay, next we have granny. Granny is bakbakad. Now, we don't see any little granny. So I don't see what to do with this. I don't see a matching one. There could be some clue maybe in the pattern of the way it sounds. Like when I hear bakbakad, it looks like there's a little bit of repeating going on there. Like, and we're starting to see, here we see like where, and then we have Wallaware. But here it's bahui and it's balabahui. So you see like, this starts with W, it gets a W for little. This starts with B, it gets a B for little. So that's a repetition. In linguistics called a reduplication. And so there's maybe a clue for that with granny, but since we don't see what it looks like without, like maybe that is a repetition, but we don't see what it looks like without the repetition. Right. Unless sometimes you can see words that are kind of hiding, like it might not say granny, it might not say little granny, it might say something else. Like a little old lady or something, a little old lady, or just something completely different that you wouldn't expect, for sure. But then when you think about it, you could connect it to the idea of granny, maybe. But I don't see anything like that. So I'm going to leave that out for now. And next we get to little money. Okay, so that's where we get, again, we get the mystery word because that's going to be 12. Okay, and then we have, yes, actually, well, we can write this out here. So we have 13. And like this. Okay, so you have 13, and then this is 12, and now we have little money is pala pirak. Okay, then we have bahui. Bag is loin, so we have bag and balabag. Okay. And we have little creek. Oh, we have that already. Little loincloth. Okay, leg, taki. Okay, taki again. We don't. Oh, there. Yeah, there's taki. But then we have. We want little legs, so that's going to be 11. Okay. And finally, we have patch, labang, and then we have 14. Okay, so here are things. This is the pattern nicely laid out. And now we can imagine what to do with it. Okay, what we can look for the pattern that reveals what's missing. Okay. So, see, we look at the data set there to look for patterns, and now we're looking at our own sort of ordered note that we have where we take this data set, we turn it into this ordered set, here, this ordered table, and now we can look for patterns again, but look for it here. And so here, the first thing that stands out here for me is, well, I mean, if here's where, it's like wala. This is the part that's being added. You can even add some bold there, you know, make it stand out more, right? So we have wala is being added, and it starts with a W, it gets a wala. Okay, this one starts with a B, it gets a bala. I mean, we can already start to imagine a pattern. Here we see this is bag. Okay, it gets a bala. It starts with a B. So if we continue the pattern, we have to imagine that, okay, we can see like it's basically the first letter of whatever this is plus ala. So, you know, where gets wala, bahui gets bala. Well, talo bag, it seems like that would get tala. Talo bag. I mean, that's going to be my guess, right? So why not, right? Like, you can put a question mark, say, don't know for sure, but if we're following the pattern, I don't see any reason to make the pattern any different. Here we see pala, there's another, and so we have to imagine that following the same pattern, the first letter plus ala, so we get pala, and this becomes pirak. Okay, follow that out. And here, instead of the, I'll just do underline instead of the question mark here. All right, so you have, there's pirak. Oh, but now I'm forgetting what numbers there are, so I'm going to do that. That's worth writing that in, the numbers. Let's go with that here. Okay, yes, okay. Teletelo bag, 13. And then we have pirak is 12. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, and we get our nice pattern. Continuing here, so then taki, well, of course, we have to imagine tala, taki. 11, make sure you get that double K. Like, check the spelling. Sometimes spellings can be a little bit tricky when you're looking at these unknown languages. You really have to go letter by letter, which is, I guess, kind of obvious when you're spelling, but I think a lot of us, when we're spelling in our native language, there's a lot that kind of comes through automatically, and that we don't think about it all the time. We just write the words we're thinking of, and the spellings kind of come through automatically from our experience with that language. But with a new language, you just have to like be careful with each letter. And oh, here's a fun one because it seems like it's kind of fun to say. La la labang, la la labang. So that's kind of fun to say, right? And yeah, so that seems pretty straightforward, right? Like it almost seems too easy. It's like, is there something we're missing? But I don't see any evidence that there should be any other solution to this, right? So, you know, I'd say, okay, I mean, you take one more look, you think, well, what am I missing? What else could be going on? But the pattern here seems to be pretty solid. There's no other vowel change. There's nothing it's always Allah. I mean, of all the ones we know, it's always Allah. And we simply take the first letter. There's no sign of it. Sometimes you might see, like, when they might drop some of it, maybe they decide, well, we don't want to say 3 las in a row. You know, some languages would say we don't want 3 las in a row, so maybe you just say lalaba. You say, you know, you shorten it. You make it shorter, but there's no evidence for that here. So there's no evidence of nothing. There's no evidence of anything else going on, and so that's where I would just say, okay, we're done, and satisfactory. You say satisfied, and you move on. So we can just check our solutions here. And what do we see? There it is. Nothing else going on. So there you go. That's how you get started in NACLO. It only goes uphill from there. But if you can solve problems like that, even the hardest problems, many of them are really exactly the same kind of format. You're looking for the patterns. You're sorting things out and turning chaos into order and just finding the missing pieces. It's the same at the higher end as at the starting end, and it's a good place to start.